Well, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us today for this Blue Talk, this conversation on life, on values, and also in your case on global politics. And it's wonderful to have you here in Spain and to have you here at IE with us for this. I wanted to start our conversation at the very beginning, at the origins of your career and of your life, and what led you to make the decision of becoming a diplomat, which you've been all of your life, both at the national level and then at the global and multilateral levels. And I know that there's an anecdote in your life that you met President Kennedy when you were 18, and already then you knew that you wanted to become a diplomat. So what drove you to diplomacy and to working on global challenges?
Thank you very much, Provost Muniz, for this opportunity. That's a great question to talk about why and how I decided to become a diplomat and working for my country and for the world later. As you know, I was born and grew up during very difficult time caused by a Korean War. I still vividly remember the bombs were raining down and destroying all what we had at that time. I was very poor. But there came a shining moment one day when I was a senior of a high school. I was invited by the American National Red Cross Society. That was August 1962. I was one of the 4 Korean representatives. I realized that there were about 140 from 40 different countries who assembled in San Francisco, California at the beginning of August 1962. For me, it was a great cultural shock. At that time, I have never visited even Seoul. I was just a rural country boy. And then, having traveled 1 month around the United States, having felt all this cultural shock, there was such a huge, distinct difference between Korea at that time and the United States at that time. Then we were very honored to have an opportunity of meeting President John F. Kennedy. What he said to us, even though I do not remember all what he told us, he said there are no national boundaries in this world. The question, he said, was whether you are ready to extend your helping hand. That was inspiring. And I decided at that time I should do something for my own country. I never thought later I would become Secretary General. I wanted to become a diplomat and working for my country. And I worked hard. When I became foreign minister, I thought that I should do something for the world. And again, with the help of international community, and with some good luck, I was elected as a Secretary General. Then having served 37 years in Korean diplomacy and having served 10 years as a Secretary General of the United Nations, my priority was how to make sure that we give better future for young people and how we can promote the unity, not division among people. Then my priority was that, first of all, we had to address climate crisis, which has been happening much, much faster than one would have been expected. At the same time, I thought that there are so many poor people who are living in abject poverty, and there were so many people who are dying unnecessarily from preventable diseases. And there were so many young children who are not able to even go to school. Whenever I saw those poor people in Africa and other developing countries, I thought about me in 1950s. Then I really wanted to do something for those people. That drove me as a Secretary General to do much, much more for the betterment of the humanity.
Well, it's a very inspiring story of being committed to public service, because it's a life that you've dedicated to public service and to working for others. No? And the fact that this is connected to the life of John F. Kennedy, that was such a figure, emblematic figure in U.S. politics and in global politics, and throughout his career, he himself constantly called for people to take up public service in different ways and in different functions. I wanted to ask you about values as well. What would you say have been the central values to your career, and how would you say they have been important to your work, but also important more broadly to people, to the people that are going to listen to us, and particularly to the young people that might listen to this conversation?
The value which I have been trying to share and work together with world's people and world leaders is that the leadership should flow like water. This value of water is coming from my own education in Korea. 2,600 years ago, there was a very distinguished Chinese scholar, philosopher, called Lao Tzu, who said the highest virtue would be like water. The why water? Water, people do not give much value, but there is no element in this world that which is more important than water, more powerful, but it also means a balance, humanity, and humility. Water does not show off their power, but it is the strongest one whenever it was necessary. Then it covers all the places where it flows. That means does not discriminate, non-discrimination. And it also gives some very good philosophical value that it always flows top to down, top to bottom. If it does not flow, then it means stale and corruption in our real society. I met the President Obama of the United States, and I talked about this, my own philosophical feeling. Then I have written a calligraphy. The highest value is to act like water. I have given it him as a gift so that he would really show a global leadership.
I feel very tempted to ask you about who do you think has embodied that type of leadership, you know, so like water, like liquid leadership over time that you look up to?
Well, it is very hard to pick one or two leaders who really exercised that kind of a leadership. One person, if I may say, is Nelson Mandela, whom I had an honor of meeting him in his residence in South Africa. Nelson Mandela, he's known to everybody. He spent 28 years in prison, but he has pardoned all his former political enemies who really gave hard life to him. Then he has also shown such leadership of compassion and embracing with all the people. When I complimented him, I paid my respect to him. He said that it was not me alone. I thought that he was speaking out of humility. I repeated at the end of our conversation again. Then he said again and again, it was not only me. There are so many people who worked to make our country free so that all the people would not be discriminated because of race or because of ethnicity, because of sex. That really gave me huge impression and inspiration. Now, after my retirement, I'm working as one of the elders. These elders, founded by Nelson Mandela, is composed of former global leaders, presidents or prime ministers, or some Nobel Peace Laureates. And I'm very much honored as former Secretary General of the United Nations to really promote the much, much better world where there would be no discrimination because of what you are. And there should be no conflict because of difference of political views.
Let me shift a little bit the conversation to global politics, no? Because having you here is a privilege, and we've witnessed in Eastern Europe and Ukraine the first major war in Europe since the end of the Second World War. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is still ongoing as we sit here. The hostilities are still ongoing, particularly in the east of the country. I wanted to ask you about how you view the conflict, but above all, I wanted to ask you about the function of the UN in addressing this issue. So in March of this year, the General Assembly produced a very widely supported condemnation of Russia's actions in Ukraine. The Security Council has been unable to take precise, concise, and determined action on this, to a large extent because of the veto capacity of some of its members, particularly in this case, Russia. How do you see the conflict, its consequences, and what do you think it says about the UN's ability to remain a major broker in international politics and a major guarantor of international peace?
First of all, it is totally unacceptable. And that's why I, as a member of the elders, condemned the illegal and unacceptable aggression of Ukraine by President Putin. That must be stopped immediately. With the 4 months passing since February 24th, when Russia attacked Ukraine illegally, then more than 6.5 million people have become refugees. And there are almost 8 million people, more than that, have become internally displaced people. Not only this humanitarian crisis, it has caused a lot of disruptions in supply chains. First of all, Ukraine has been known as a breadbasket for the world. More than 25 million tons of grains are now just frozen there, and because Russian warships are blocking the free flow of export. Many African countries, developing countries, are starving to death. And not only this one, therefore, this war must be stopped immediately. And there should be a peace agreement. There should be a reconstruction of Ukraine at this time. The WFP, World Food Program, is expressing serious concern. The people who are living under abject poverty has doubled. More than 2.5 billion people are now suffering from this one. Energy prices have been spiraling, and there's a huge disruption in supply chains, and there's a cyber attacks. These are all unacceptable crimes of aggression. Now, talking about the United Nations, why United Nations has not been taking any action, this is because of the division among permanent members of the Security Council. Russia is one of the 5 permanent members. They have vetoed all the proposals until now. That's why United Nations has not been taking any action. The General Assembly has taken almost unanimous resolution condemning and urging Russia to stop this aggression. But General Assembly resolution, as you know very well, does not have binding force. That is why the people of the world are just frustrated. They are condemning the United Nations' inability to take any action. At this time, even though the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court had already begun investigating this process, the ICC unfortunately does not have a mandate to prosecute President Putin, because they are mandated only in the case of war crimes, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, or genocide. That's why the members of the elders have proposed that we should establish a special criminal court to be able to prosecute those people who are responsible for this aggression. As a matter of principle, this aggression must stop immediately as of today, and international community should really show their solidarity. I sincerely hope that as they are doing, provide necessary humanitarian assistance and help for reconstruction of Ukrainian people as soon as possible.
Now, you just flew in from Seoul. You are Korean. You live in Seoul now, not very far away from China. I wanted to ask you about the rise of China and its implications regionally and globally. Are we headed towards a G2 world with China and the United States engaged in this systemic collision? What does this mean for global affairs? How do you view this extremely important issue in international affairs?
As a former Secretary General of the United Nations, who had really worked together closely with both United States and China, I am deeply concerned about what is now happening between U.S. and China, so-called U.S.-China conflict. We are suffering from many global challenges. Therefore, there is no time for United States and China to express their own views and engage in dispute and conflict. When I was the Secretary General, when I was really promoting and working very hard to have a Paris climate change agreement, it was because of United States and China working together. Without working together between the two countries, number one and number two, this greenhouse gas emitting countries, and in terms of economic power and military power, they are number two and number one and number two countries. Therefore, at this time, whatever differences of opinions that they may have, I think it is time for them to sit down together and work harmoniously to address all global problems, including climate change. And we have such a good global goals. Climate change as well as sustainable development goals. This is for humanity. This is for our planet Earth. I think they should go beyond their political dispute. I know that there will certainly be some time when they will be able to address all these issues, like human rights issues, or like political issues, economic issues. Then it's not the time, as far as I think, and as a member of the elders, we are really trying to promote some more reconciliatory relationship between United States and China. Yeah.
Well, I think this is going to be one of the big questions of our time. Will this relationship prevent both countries and with them the rest of the world prevent them from addressing the big shared challenges? And climate is clearly the textbook case. This is a global problem. It affects everybody. Very famously, you said that there's no plan B to addressing climate change because we don't have a planet B. So this is a global problem. In fact, you were referencing at the beginning the reflection from President Kennedy. You know, we face these common challenges, and climate change might be the most emblematic of them all. How do you see the struggle against climate change evolving? Do you think we're addressing this appropriately? Where do you see this agenda moving in the future?
At this time, the humanity of this world do not have any more serious issue than climate change. I have been warning the world's people, particularly political leaders, that climate change is happening much, much faster than we have thought. This is because of the industrialization process. Human beings have been neglecting and abusing the prerogative as well as the benefit which has been given by our nature. By 2050, we have to make sure that we realize carbon neutrality. Full stop. This is the most important and the worst situation we are now facing. I have been repeatedly saying that we don't have Planet B. Therefore, we don't have a Plan B either. We have only Plan A. That's again full stop. We have to decarbonize by 2050. We have to use sustainable energy. We have to care for our planet Earth as well. The climatologists and geologists warn that the sixth mass extinction may come in 100 years. Mass extinction means that more than 70% of all the species in this planet Earth will extinguish, will disappear. Then the fifth mass extinction happened 65 million years ago. Then why we should suffer from this kind of perilous situation where more than 70% of human beings and all these animals would disappear from this earth. Therefore, there is no time to lose. We must take urgent action. We have to show all our resources, our political will, and business society and civil society, government leaders, they have to forge a tripartite partnership to address climate change. As Secretary General, I have been traveling all around the world to make my wording much more powerful. I visited 5 times Arctic and Antarctica, and I have seen all these deforestation problems, and I have seen all this, like Lake Chad shrinking rapidly, and the iceberg melting, and sea level is rising. All these kind of messages I have been speaking out and spreading all throughout the world. We have made some progress at the Glasgow COP26, but not enough. We have to provide the necessary financial support to those developing countries, particularly small island developing countries and least developed countries. They are the ones who have contributed least to current climate phenomena. It's mostly upper level rich countries who have abused our privileges of nature. Therefore, they have moral and political responsibility to provide necessary financial support. $100 billion they have promised in 2009 during a Copenhagen summit meeting has not been implemented yet. After 13 years now, there was no such agreement during Glasgow summit meeting, I sincerely hope that in Sharm el-Sheikh summit meeting, November this year, world leaders will make some very determined contribution, determined political will by formulating the roadmap how they can provide the necessary support for developing countries. Climate change does not discriminate between developed and developing countries. It affects the whole humanity, it affects the whole our planet Earth. Therefore, to just make sure our humanity and planet Earth live harmoniously, we have first and most of all address this climate issue as soon as possible.
Can I ask you on you are considered by many the father of the Sustainable Development Agenda and the 2030 Agenda. The SDGs, as they're known, they go beyond climate. So they address the climate issue and the sustainability issue in the traditional sense, but they also include new dimensions to this: equity, access to services and goods, gender issues, the rights of youth. I mean, it's a very broad agenda. How do you see the world in terms of its fulfillment of the SDGs? Do you think we're headed in the right direction? Do you think we'll be able to fulfill the agenda?
I'm proud to have prioritized during my time as a Secretary General to help world leaders agree on these Sustainable Development Goals. It has 17 goals, which covers whole spectrums of our human lives as well as planet Earth. In fact, climate change is one of these 17 goals. Because climate change is so important, so urgent, we decided to take this separately and put on negotiating process. It is a treaty. It has a binding force, so it must be implemented. Rest of the 16 goals are political declaration and political promise. Of course, that promise must be implemented. As far as I know, and all the people around the world agree that these Sustainable Development Goals are the most ambitious and far-reaching goals the United Nations has ever presented to the people of the world. Starting from eradication of abject poverty, by 2030, there should be nobody who should die from preventable diseases. Many people are dying needlessly from preventable diseases because of poverty, because of inability to be treated. Then no children, school-aged children, should be out of school. At least they should be able to finish middle school by 2030. All those are very important promise. At the same time, what is most important is gender equality. There should be no discrimination against women. We have to fully use the potential and capacity and wisdom of women. Again, during my time, I'm proud that again to have prioritized the importance of gender empowerment. That means women. I established the big organization dedicated to the promotion of women's rights called UN Women. That was established in July 2010. I really appointed many people, able and educated and committed women leaders to higher positions. And I have been urging the political leaders of the world to empower women so that we can address all these climate change issues and the problems of what the whole this world has now. Then can we be able to finish and implement all these 17 goals by 2030. I'm afraid to say that we may not be able to implement all the goals by 2030. We have 8 years more to go. Therefore, we may have to think about the future successor vision. But we have to mobilize all the necessary resources, political will, and partnerships, government, business society, and civil societies. That when we have a tripartite partnership strongly forged together, then I think we can implement all these 17 goals. So it is our moral and political duty to implement these 17 goals.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for that, because to thank you for the agenda and the SDGs. It is the global map and roadmap that we have for development and for addressing the most pressing challenges that we face. It's extremely ambitious, and it is the roadmap that we have. I mean, this is it. Let me ask you a parting question, a final question, and it has to do with the youth. And I know throughout your career you've emphasized the importance of youth, the importance of education, the importance of leadership by the youth. They're going to inherit major challenges. During your tenure at the UN, you dealt with very complex issues, from the effects of the financial crisis to the management of the Ebola pandemic in Africa. The next generation of leaders, the current youth, are going to have to face major challenges. Maybe an update to the SDGs and the 2030 agenda, the management of security crises around the world that are very different, managing and building a global governance architecture that deals with the China-US relationship. So how do you think the youth should tackle these challenges? When you look at the new generations, what do you see? What inspires you from them? And what types of skills, values, and abilities do you think they should have?
My motto and my way of leadership has always been that we have to address all these issues in a comprehensive way. We have to address climate change and gender empowerment and sustainable development goals and youth empowerment. I have tried my best efforts during my time as a Secretary General. Now, another area which we are now neglecting, we have to do much more, is youth empowerment. After all, we may have to hand over all these challenges to our succeeding generations, and we have to make sure that our succeeding generations will be able to live in human dignity and also abundance of resources, and without the fear of climate crisis and poverty issues. Before it is too late, we have to really empower youth. They are benefited with science, technology, modern science and technology, quality education, and all these goals, 17 goals. Therefore, I think if they are empowered, they can do much more. Look at the case of Greta Thunberg. Just one young girl's voice has been really making a lot of changes to mobilize the political will of the leaders, political leaders, business leaders. In 2019, when I was attending General Assembly of the United Nations, she was speaking to the General Assembly. She was just warning the world leaders sitting there. You have taken my dreams. You have to be responsible for our future. Do what you need to do to make sure that our world can live in peace and harmony and sustainability. I think that is our moral and political responsibility. Empowering women, empowering youth, and implement all 17 Sustainable Development Goals and address climate crisis before it is too late. That is our responsibility, and I'm urging the incumbent political leaders, before it is too late, to do their best effort beyond their narrow prism of their national interest. We are living in a small world, planet Earth, with the transformative development of science and technology. We are living in a small world. John F. Kennedy said that there is no national boundaries at this time. It's only the matter whether you are ready to extend your helping hand. That means we have to have global citizenship. We may be proud of a citizen of Spain or United States or Korea, but we are global citizens. So we have to go beyond the boundaries with the passion and compassion. This is what I'd like to give to our young generation. Have a global vision with the global citizen and also compassion. Do something good for humanity and our planet Earth.
Well, that is very inspiring, and we have very high hopes on our youth at this institution, and we believe in education and in empowering our youth. They are going to inherit major challenges moving forward, but they have in figures like yourself and the legacy that you leave, big examples of what it means to be committed to global challenges and what it means to have a deep sense of public service. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and thank you for visiting us and for being here on our Blue Talks with AI and LinkedIn. So thank you, Secretary.
Let us work together to make this world better for all. I think, again, that is our moral responsibility at this time. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.